What comes to mind when I mention the word humility? Do you think of a volunteer at your local nursing home who works long hours behind the scenes? Do you think of the religious leader who goads you to kneel with him because he thinks it's in your own best interest? Do you think of a starving child in a dusty corner of North Africa who has been too demeaned to even ask for help? To get a sense about what humility means to this community, I gathered some evidence by conducting an internet search for humility.jpg using Google's image search engine. I categorized images based on the context of how each was used on the first 100 web pages that came up, and here's what I found. Non-religious art constituted a quarter of the total. Generic inspirational images were used on 10% of the pages, and religious sites came up 57% of the time. The remaining group consisted of images including cartoons, politicians, and a rock band called Humility. The fact that religious imagery dominates our societal views of humility comes as no surprise to me. Religion has long held to the idea that we as individuals are less important than the one who endowed us with our very lives and morality. The Christian concept of humility includes the expectation that regardless of your place in life, you too are expected to be humble. It also includes a man-God who washed people's feet before he performed an even greater act of humility through his death. Perhaps somewhat ironically, Christian humility has long been thought of as a virtue at the pinnacle of goodness. Now, when I ask my starting question about humility, I'll bet that very few of you thought about science. Most of you, as my image search suggests, probably thought of someone or something religious or New Age inspirational. Yet the questions that science addresses surround fundamental questions about who we are, how we got here, and where we're headed. And this has an inevitable effect on how we view ourselves, whether arrogantly or with humility. My thesis is that the grand story or meta-narrative of scientific discovery has been one of ever-increasing humility. When Nicolaus Copernicus theorized that the Earth was not at the center of the universe, against the literal interpretation of the Bible of his day, those that recognized it as true were humbled. When Galileo, Bruno, and others suggested that even this heliocentric view was wrong, the idea was too humbling for the times. By 1785, when William Herschel first mapped our galaxy and put our sun near but not at the center of it, there was no great commotion. And when Einstein jarred us into appreciating that everything in the universe is in motion, the very notion of centrality took its hardest blow yet. As we explore our solar system, the old ideas about the place in which we live are changing and becoming radically real and more grounded for us. Take our neighbor, the planet Mars. While landed explorations have been minimal, incredibly detailed satellite photographs have revealed features that are interpretable because there are so many analogs on Earth. Neither the Earth or Mars is entirely unique, and our so-called Earth science holds up. What we have not seen on Mars is as informative as what we have seen. In retrospect, the old sci-fi portrayal of Martians as human-like revealed our arrogance, and if there is life on Mars, it is not likely to look anything like us. Among the stunning images of space exploration thus far is this solar eclipse of Saturn, looking back toward the Sun and Earth. Apart from its cold stellar beauty, such unimaginable images as this have torn to shreds the way observers used to think of Saturn, as one of several fuzzy specks of erratic light that foretold something astrologically important about us. The more we see that perspectives like this can exist, the more we bring our humble home in context. At a far greater scale, insights into the nature of our universe humble our imagination and our limited power of creative thinking like nothing else. The incipient science of deep space informs us that there is plenty out there that we can never know because the universe is far too great. The vastness and inaccessibility of space is incredibly humbling for those of us who claim to know things. On the biological side of science, appreciating the fact that species have and can become extinct over time has also humbled us. It wasn't long ago that extinction was denied on religious grounds. Why, after all, would God allow his innocent creatures to go extinct? It wasn't part of the plan, was it? Early naturalists assumed, because of this, that the bizarre fossils that they uncovered belonged to animals that must still be thriving somewhere else on the planet, even though no one had any evidence to support this. The French zoologist Georges Cuvier was instrumental in us realizing that species had indeed become extinct. Fossils of elephant-like creatures were common across northern Europe and North America, and through careful comparative anatomy, he showed that these were not African or Indian elephants, as had been supposed, but two entirely distinct species, the woolly mammoth and mastodon, two species that no longer existed. Similarly, he described and analyzed a peculiar fossil from Paraguay known as Megatherium, an extinct species of ground sloth as large as an elephant. He also described the now extinct 7-foot-high at the shoulder giant deer known as Megaloceros. In the centuries since, our research has revealed that the vast majority of species to have ever lived are no longer with us, either because they disappeared completely or because they changed into new species. The question of extinctions over geologic time has always lent itself to explanations from catastrophe. In the 18th century, the great catastrophe that dominated thought was a global flood, as related in Genesis, a story discredited for want of evidence and any possible rational mechanism. In the 19th century, Louis Agassiz hypothesized a global and catastrophic ice age, now partially discredited by his overextension of evidence. In the 20th century, scientists described evidence for catastrophic meteor impacts, such as that which brought the age of reptiles to a close. The facts and mechanisms for historical extinctions are gradually being revealed through disciplined scientific inquiry. That these extinctions occurred at all humbles us, for we have found that there has been no progressive course to life's history, and that there are no guarantees of success or failure. And as a result, life on Earth has become more precarious.